Welcome back to the Thera campaign Abridged. In the previous part we kicked the Tahar caliphate off of our continent and we won a major battle with them on their continent, allowing us to edge forwards a little bit, but they've still got plenty of strength nearby. We also held on to our little pointless beachhead on the vampire continent by defeating their attacks, and we're almost done kicking the Vikings off our continent. We need to do now a battle to prevent a counterattack that was coming in from them. This ended up being another battle where we were above the enemy on some cliffs and were shooting down at them, which also happened when we fought the Vikings recently. So we stand around with our pretty much just archers army and cut down their ranged camp as it tries to skirmish, and then the enemy's general blob will come up towards us. Because of the way the cliffs are arranged, they can actually only attack my left flank here, so a lot of my formation is set up kind of pointlessly. I can't really use very much of it. But anyway, now you can see I'm starting to get ready to block the enemy off. I'm going to bother defending my archers, how kind of me. And we can also make attacks down the right because there's only one unit here. They don't seem too interested in fighting, so we just charge down the right with a bunch of stuff, and they will gradually fold around to be behind the enemy. Meanwhile, their main blob is already having about half of its stuff rout out as I charge in. Maybe they're just skirmishing out actually, but basically they were broken up pretty easily. And now the fact to have all these archers isn't that useful because many of them won't really be able to see anything. However, even with just a limited number of melee troops, we can get the business done with surrounds and pounds, and relying on the enemies, as ever, very low morale. I don't know if that's a faction trait of the Vikings, that they just suck when it comes to morale or something, but they always seem to rout easily. The stuff that doesn't rout ends up in a pocket there, surrounded, and eventually it does rout basically. That's the end of the story, can't be bothered with this one. The enemy general tries to escape at the end, we cut him down, and now that's enough. We absolutely annihilated them, went better than I expected, so that's their counterattack dead, and now the Vikings have pretty much nothing left on our continent. I'm going to start a new attack down here in our forgotten enclave in the middle of the map. I thought with all these units I've got here, I might as well actually go and attack the Tahar Caliphate. I've been able to do this for a long time, I just didn't feel like doing it. But now I'm going to. I moved up to a nearby settlement. It's actually fully garrisoned, didn't really expect that. In response, I'm just going to buy all of these mercenaries right here. That will take us up to having a full stack, so we can match the enemy's strength, and then we'll besiege them. Plus these mercenaries are some cool new units we'll get to see. Next up, my little base on the vampire island is being attacked again. It's pretty much the same battle we saw last time we defended this castle, where we've got a half-dead army and we're just going to sit here and try to take out some of the enemy's siege equipment. Again, they've got 2 towers, 2 ladders, and a few rams. The 2 ladders set up in the same place as before. We can just deploy pirates to defend the tops of each, and as usual, because only one unit will attack with the ladders, that's not very dangerous. That siege tower gets set on fire by our ballista towers shooting at it, so that's absolutely perfect. And actually we also took out their second tower, which was on the other side of the main gate, meaning it was just those 2 ladders and the ram to worry about. The ram's getting boiling oil poured on it, but it's still ramming away. And as for the ladders, as mentioned, we can just win these fights. It's only one unit, and our towers will shoot into the melee as well, as will our archers by the looks of things. So we have an advantage even without that many troops on the inside of the castle. Soon the units up top rout, and that's going to be the end of that until the ram finishes its ramming. But it's on fire. I don't quite know how this happened. I'm guessing it must be from the oil pouring on top of it, but I'm hesitant to say that because that didn't happen in the last battle where we also had the oil pouring on top of the ram, that none of the rams got destroyed this time. Their first ram dies, then they bring up a second ram to put it right on top, and while they were bringing up that ram, their army's sitting in range of the walls, so the towers are killing stuff. The second ram sets up, starts ramming, but again, after like 20 seconds of ramming, it sets on fire. Not really sure why it's so effective today. In the past, rams just didn't mind having the oil poured on them. But yeah, that's good news I suppose. This would almost end the battle in our favour, but they have another ram. So now we have to wait a long time. The AI is going to walk back to this ram in its deployment zone and then bring it up to the wall. But we have killed most of the infantry portion of their army because they were just standing by the walls, and the towers are very slowly killing them, and that's going to continue as they gradually walk away and come back. You can see plenty of bodies in front of the walls. That's good stuff. We're pretty much guaranteed to win at this stage, but they do actually send some units to go and attack through the ladders again, so we need to defend. First, this generic infantry unit comes up, looks at us, and then routes back down the ladder. Clearly they know what's good for them, they're going to get out of here. Next they've got some kind of pike unit coming up, probably not ideal for leading an attack over the walls. Their guys just kind of stand on the wall, think, no, probably won't do this, and they go back down. So there we go, another attack repulsed. Then another wave comes up, another Impalers unit, but they have a similar amount of success. A couple of guys come over to fight with us and die instantly, and the rest very wisely go back down the ladders. So we can repeat this pattern until the end of the battle, or the time limit runs out, depends what the AI is going to do with itself. Strangely, one of their units went and picked up one of the ladder sets and started moving it away from the wall. I didn't even know you could do this, I've certainly never seen it happen. So that's interesting. Perhaps related is the fact that they are now glitched out while carrying the ladders and they can just barely move. They're moving very slowly. I'm guessing they're waiting for the rest of their unit to catch up, and that unit's stuck somewhere inside the siege towers or something. So these ladders are removed from the wall and then just glitch out there. That means it's now even harder for the enemy to attack. Although they've got a secret strategy here. They send another unit up the one remaining set of ladders, but they've got this strategy where they can walk over the top of our troops by not ending the ladder climb animation. This comes with several advantages for them. We actually can't target them while they're doing this, but my towers are still trying to shoot at them. It doesn't appear to be killing them at all, but the arrows are hitting my troops and killing them, so incredibly sneaky tactics. I don't know how they came up with this one, but a bit of the old vampire magic is doing wonders, and the risk here is that they might glitch their way over to the capture point or something.
We're walking in the air, we're flying in the moonless sky, the people far below are sleeping as we fly.
The dream eventually ends because they teleport back to the ladders for whatever reason, and that's the end of that. They're going to withdraw, a few of them get killed, and yes, the battle should be won at this stage. I just sit here now and the timer eventually runs out, granting us a heroic victory. Interestingly, we get some text down there from the narration that I'd never heard before. I'm guessing this is the narration for specifically winning a heroic victory on the timer. Interesting. And the result itself was pretty good. We did kill most of the enemy army, just the cav in the distance were still alive. So that's that. Dracul do go on to finally take out our allies who had been sitting around in their territory for a while. That means the distraction they were providing is now over. So we could be facing like 5 armies if they really put their mind into attacking us. Luckily for this turn, not much happens. We're going to now make a new attack against the Tahar Caliphate in the centre of the map. With this army that's just sitting around, might as well go and use it for something, especially because I've now shipped in an additional army to this front, so they can take over defending this town, not that we really need to defend that town. And that's that. So we'll start pushing on and try to actually defeat the Tahar Caliphate. Not that we at all have to do that to win the campaign, it's just kind of what I'm doing now because they won't leave me alone otherwise. And I've also shipped a new army over to the Vampire front to help out with the relief of that castle. That army has our faction leader in it as well, so they better not die. Our attack against the Vampires is going to continue on the mainland because they have now taken over the Viking place that I was going for, so we can besiege them right there. Did some spying just to see maybe there's some more stuff down there. No, it looked pretty clear until it wasn't. In the next turn, the Vampires land an army with ships and immediately come to the relief of this settlement, and the army they landed is actually pretty good. In this case, we can withdraw from battle to avoid fighting everything, but we do have to fight the army that pursues us. Still a bit better, no reinforcements for the army now, although it's also not a siege draw out. In this case though, we need to worry more about survival, because this army they've brought, while not overpowering on the balance bar, does have a few key units, such as heavy cavalry and very heavy infantry, things our faction isn't well suited to combat. We do get some great terrain. We can sit on a nice hillside and shoot away with our massed archers. To start with, they come at us with 2 units of pistol cav, and while they do a lot of damage to us by blasting at our front line, we have so many archers, I wasn't really worried about this. I was worried about how quickly they were actually killing my troops. We took pretty hefty losses to this attack, but it doesn't last very long because we have 10 plus units of archers just raining arrows all over the place. And since they're probably a light cav unit with low armor stats and stuff, that's enough. They rout after a while, and then we face the rest of the enemy army. Since they're going to be slowly moving through this bowl in front of us, it's ideal for raining arrows down on their infantry, especially the pikes they had down there. The main issue though is all of their cav. We have no units in our army which are good against cav, so they can just plow into us. Here they plow into our infantry line, that's not so bad. It's more worrying when they go around the flank like this and attack our archers. The big risk is that if they really played their cards right, they could rear attack our army with their cav and there'd just be nothing we could do at all, we'd totally die. Luckily though, they're sticking to just about flanking us and frontal attacks, which is the best we can hope for really. We can outflank the enemy on our right by sending in the gun cav, and that goes pretty well because as usual, once the guns start firing, stuff starts routing. And the enemy were being very conservative. They kept a second line in reserve and reserve cav at the back. This meant it wasn't so bad that we were under a lot of pressure on the left, because I had stuff to spare. I could send my general to go and try to save my archers from constant death. Eventually they deployed their blood knights against this unit of local troops I had, just some light infantry. They're not going to survive for terribly long, but they can turn around and fight the blood knights downhill, and probably the blood knights are a charging unit. So it's not all that bad actually. My gun cav are able to clear out the situation with the archers. We lost a whole bunch of our archers, but the rabbit boys are trash, so their losses don't matter all that much. And then we can come back to focusing on the fight, which is actually pretty much won. Their infantry line didn't do very much against me. I didn't really look during the battle as we saw, but at some point they died, presumably because my rabbit boys were just constantly hitting them from above. Then we charge forwards to take out some of the heavier units. We need to kill their dismounted blood knights and their mounted blood knights. And in both cases, just raining arrows will eventually do the job. You can see here that massive volleys of arrows are hitting the backs of these blood knights. It occasionally kills one or two of them. They're probably so armoured that they're strong against arrow attacks, but we have 10 units of archers, so there's just not that much you can do when you're being hit by 10 units of archers. Plus our gun cav can go around routing things, and just broadly speaking, everything else in the army is gone. We eventually get the chain route we're looking for, and I just get out of there. A heroic victory. It actually went better than expected. I was genuinely worried that we'd finally run up against an army that was suitable for bringing down the rabbit boy spam stack, but no, it just always wins somehow, so that's good to see. We're going to go straight into another battle because the Uruks are attacking down in the middle of the map. This army's been in our territory for a very long time doing nothing. They finally attacked since I did move some of the troops out and lessen my defences. It's actually only one unit of Uruks here. We're mainly fighting lizards, hoplites, and some kind of Central Asian archer looking unit, I don't really know. It's another case where our walls are too good, so most of our archers won't do anything, and our gunners won't be able to do anything either because nobody can see over the top of the walls. So frustrating. It's also, while it's kind of hard to tell, slightly raining. That means it's extra hard to set things on fire. Maybe it's even impossible, I don't know. But basically, we aren't able to take out any siege towers, as we saw recently. Or the one siege tower, I should say. Their ladders are set up, and they start spamming those heavy hoplites onto the wall. Our pirates are kind of the opposite unit, focusing more on attack, whereas they're focusing more on defense, so we'll see how that goes. Their siege tower, while not tall enough, did actually deploy troops onto the wall. It deployed their Urukai, which have gone over to support the hoplites. What I wanted to do is send pirates to rear attack them and have gunners shoot them in the flank, but in both cases my units just kind of glitched out and didn't do it for various reasons, so we end up just seeing a little grind on that wall, which is going to be most of the battle. Everything else is just waiting, either not able to see the enemy or waiting for the gate to open so they can move on in. We almost get these pirates to back attack the Urukai, but a couple of doormen at the back there persuade our troops not to do it, I suppose, and not very much comes of that. Frustrating. Eventually they also open up the gate and everything else waiting outside will charge in. I'm still wrangling these gunners who so far have not done anything in the fight. Very helpful. I'm not going to need them because I'm actually not letting the enemy come through the gate here. The idea is that by keeping them in the gate, they're more likely to get hit by the oil. Usually I'd let them through so that you could attack them on multiple flanks. But because they have tons of heavy infantry, I thought no, I'll just keep them here. They're going to get hit by more tower stuff and more of the oil stuff if they stay just outside the wall. And indeed, as we stand here fighting them in the gatehouse, we see the oil things pop off and take out blocks of those heavy hoplites. That's nice to see. I think the reptilian lizard guys in there aren't very good, so we don't need to worry about them. But the armoured stuff is going down slowly but surely. That's very nice. We can also see a few of our guys sneaking down the enemy's poorly set up ladders. I think that was actually a glitch. They're supposed to be going to our side of the gate. But because they went down the ladders, they end up walking into the back of the blob, technically rear attacking it, and that chain routes most of it, so that went pretty well in the end. I should have actually tried to do that. With this, we can run after them and kill most of their army. The battle lasted a while longer because the Uruks are still going, and while the enemy have balance bar presence, it proved to be not all that important. They basically routed after a couple of kills. We killed everything, bringing us to this point, a heroic victory, another Uruk assault, repulsed, and we'll go back to just ignoring them. After our win against Dracul earlier, we can now move in and besiege that settlement again, and there's me for the first time using the press M to merge thing that people told me about in the comments. I never knew about that, and I literally spent so much of my time manually rearranging armies to try and minimize the number of slots being used. So that is a major breakthrough in me not being mad at this game. Anyway, we go on, hire a bunch of mercenaries and reset the siege. I can actually attack right now because I have a siege weapon now, but I'm not going to. On the other vampire front, it's a bit of a mess. We're facing off against like 6 or 7 stacks of enemy troops. Pretty nasty. I did notice there are lots of mercenaries available. We'll grab some of those guys. What I was wanting to do was go on and attack that settlement that's barely defended, but with no siege weapons, there's no point, because if we go over there, we'll just be attacked by 3 armies at once or something and end up in a difficult situation. So I ended up just kind of camping down next to the castle with a fort, so we're all sitting here. I thought I'll wait until I can get another stack or something over here to try and break this deadlock, because every move we can make now is really dangerous. I'm going to grab a few more extra mercenaries, and also I had some spare dead units that I wanted to take out of these armies to free up slots for the new mercenaries, and we'll see a use for them in a second. Meanwhile, we're going to up our attack on the Tahar down in the central continent, just pushing away some relief forces that showed up and now adding a second stack to that siege we started earlier. We're now also going to fight the Tahar on the other side of that continent because a relief army shows up at the other siege, and here we have a roughly balanced setup, so a chance for a siege draw-out of a kind. As usual, they've got absolutely billions of archers, following my model clearly, but they also have some decent infantry and some elephants, which as always we need to worry about. We've got no grenadiers this time to deal with them, but we do have quite a few gunners. We're also the defender, and again we get some good terrain, so we can set up with the guns overlooking all of the battle to just keep shooting throughout. Perfect. With any luck, they might hit some of the elephants and something good will happen. For now, they're just firing at will though, so they'll be shooting the stuff at the front. Those immortals would be a nice juicy target for a gun unit to go after. And we do have a few archers shooting over the top of everything. So, we see plenty of enemy casualties as they come in. We've got some Javs hired recently as mercenaries, and they're going to set up on my left flank ready to throw at the elephants. On the right flank, where things are looking pretty clear, we're going to advance up with some heavy infantry mercenaries, so the mercenaries playing key roles in this fight. Here they come to start the main engagement. They don't have that much melee stuff, so we can totally overpower them with our big and thick line of pirates. It's just the elephants we need to worry about. Handily, they do stop. They're going to do the thing where they try to act as a ranged unit, which is perfect. So while they stop in front of our lines, our guns might shoot them, but I was focusing more on trying to get the javelins to attack. One Jav unit skirmishes away annoyingly, the other does actually throw some Javs, and we see 2 elephants go down right away. That's proof that this can work, so now I'm just going to leave my guys and hope they keep throwing. Meanwhile, some elephants are starting to press our front line, putting them dangerously close to the gunners. I hoped this would do something, but the elephants actually keep going and make it to the back line very quickly. So I'm going to reposition my general to maybe shoot them at point blank range. The Javs scatter one of the elephant units, but they need to now turn because another elephant unit from their second army is coming in to attack. In the middle, well, that's just an enormous mess now. Plenty of our units will be stun locked and unable to do things because the elephants are running about inside them. So I'm trying to persuade the guys on the flanks to shoot at them, but they are not, as far as I can tell. We gave the orders, but they're not doing them. Well, what can you do as a commander? We're going to fold in on the right flank though. That block of archers at the back is extra vulnerable. If we had some light cav or something, we could take them down. Instead, we'll charge at them with our heavy infantry because that's what we've got. On the left flank, we're going to keep throwing jabs at those elephants who have mercifully again stopped to throw jabs at us. If they just charged in and annihilated my light javelin units, we wouldn't be able to do much to stop them from just keep going and killing everything. Very generous from the enemy. I'm going to order some guns to shoot at them. Meanwhile, in the middle, we've almost cleared up the mess. They're still killing us, but we're killing them back. Our guns and archers must be doing something. Eventually, we do drive that unit away and things start to look better, and we end up pretty much just facing the second army now that's come in to join the fight. They've spread out to attack us along our front line, which helps us out a lot. It looked at first like they were going to all attack my left flank or go around me, but they didn't. We end up with a very unmanageable situation, as you can tell. Units all over the place, hard to see what's going on, and because I'm trying to get shots for this series, my micro is of course less good than usual. Here I'm trying to get these buccaneers to shoot at those immortals who are still fighting on the front line very immortally. But those gunners should kill them. My heavy Viking troops are dealing with enemy archers by chasing them away. That should work, but will probably not catch up to them very effectively. And once the pirates get in amongst the archers, that's when the real action happens, because the pirates are fast enough to keep up and good enough to easily kill them in melee. Since that second army was again mostly archers, it was really just a block of archers that we needed to engage in order to defeat the army as a whole. So we get to another point when we're just chasing enemies across the landscape, trying to skirmish and rout things away. We've essentially won the battle at this point. There are unrouted things somewhere in the mix, but we'll get them eventually. So we can skip forward to the end. I did play through the rout phase because I needed to kill an enemy officer. It turned out he was actually on a running amok elephant that I'd forgotten about in the middle of the field. Eventually someone shoots him down, and that's the end of the battle. It actually went quite well, a heroic victory. Both enemy armies have been taken downtown, and our army's in good enough condition. Well, doesn't really matter because we can easily re-recruit into an army this close to our front lines. And we have cleared out the settlement, but at first we don't get it. I thought I wasn't going to get it because it moves on to show me other things. First a priest just doing nothing, and then the jihad army shows up at that place back on our home continent that I was warned was going to be attacked by the jihad army. So it is fully garrisoned, we're ready, and then we do get that settlement from earlier. So that all went well in the end, I think. Now this battle is that thing I hinted at earlier. I used some of my dregs from the armies off to the west to randomly besiege the nearby enemy settlement. They sallied out and we actually have an advantage on the balance bar with our dregs here because there's almost nothing inside. However, I won't hold you on a cliffhanger here because while I thought we could actually just win this and take the settlement, it went much worse than I expected. The simple reason is that the enemy general's bodyguard was very hard to kill. We did kill about half of them earlier on in the battle using my gunners, but soon the gunners were in melee with these guys and they died. Then my knights tried to attack them, but even with a few cycle charges, it didn't do very much, whereas they were killing my knights real fast. I'm guessing they just have much higher stats. And they have one infantry unit that was slowly killing everything else, and we did see a chain rout. Our captain was dead by this point. So it all went worse than expected. We didn't really cheekily take that town, which I was looking forward to. A big shame. So the whole vampire front situation remains a gigantic mess, with more stacks now locking us down in position here. As mentioned, I need to send more stuff over there to try and salvage this situation, but again, because we don't actually have to fight Dracul, I kind of don't want to. I'm clearly not actually going to do the victory objectives in this campaign. It's going to be winding down to just getting it to a point when it's not a crisis, so I can say we would win from here and then quit. That's essentially the new victory objective. I don't know how long that will take. We've certainly got a lot of stuff to clear up on this front in particular. Well, join me next time to see if we can do anything about it.